Hi, thanks for checking out my channel. My name is Kana and this is Jar of Fireflies. Here you'll find content all about my life as an Orthodox Jewish homeschooling mother of 3. And today, we're gonna bake for Rosh Hashanah. Hi guys, I am so excited about today's video. Today is a collaboration with Sonya over at Sonya's Prep, and we will both be baking for Rosh Hashanah. So once you're finished with my video, be sure to pop on over and check out her channel and her video as well. I will link to both her channel and her video down in the description below. Okay, so like I said, today we are baking for Rosh Hashanah, and I am so excited. Okay, so here's the deal. Since my son was diagnosed with celiac and we became a gluten-free household to keep him as safe as possible, I have not been as excited about baking. This is finally starting to change. And I decided that I wanted to really seek out the very best apple gluten-free baking recipes that I possibly could to make my Rosh Hashanah exactly what I wanted it to be. And I gotta tell you, I found some amazing stuff. All right, so I have got 4 recipes that I will be cooking with you guys today. I'm gonna show you guys all how to do it. I will have links to the recipes and we're gonna have so much fun. Okay, let's go bake. We're gonna get started today with some Morning Glory muffins. Now, the Morning Glory muffins aren't like super apple-y, but apple is an ingredient in the muffins, and I wanted some kind of an apple muffin without it being so apple cake-ish, because I know that I also wanna bake apple cake as our dessert for our meals. But I wanted to have a sweet, awesome, unique treat for us to have for breakfast, and Morning Glory muffins fit the bill. All right, so here's what ingredients you need.
All right, you're gonna need some baking powder, carrots, brown sugar, apples, canola oil, oat flour, pure vanilla extract, salt, eggs. Now the recipe called for sour cream. I didn't have, so I'm substituting with yogurt. The recipe also called for dried fruit. I'm using raisins and dried cranberries. And then you're gonna need gluten-free flour and some just regular old oats to put on top.
Okay, so now that I've got all of my ingredients together, I'm gonna go ahead and get my oven preheated to 325 degrees.
All right, so I've gone ahead and pre-greased my pan just using some spray canola oil, just regular old muffin tin. And then I'm grabbing my mixing bowl and I can start putting in my ingredients. All right, so I'm doing 1.5 cups of all-purpose gluten-free flour, 2/3 cup of oat flour, 1 teaspoon baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon salt, and 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. Now, I'm just gonna mix all of that together. Once I've got all that good and mixed, I'm going to add in 1 cup of light brown sugar, and then I'm going to mix all of that together. Make sure you get any lumps out of your brown sugar. You don't want to have big old lumps of sugar all up in your muffins. All right, now that that is nice and mixed, I'm going to go ahead and add in 2 cups of shredded carrots, followed by 1 cup of a peeled and cored shredded apple. And then I can go ahead and put in my 1/2 cup of dried fruit and then mix all of that together. Okay, once you've gotten that all mixed up, go ahead and push that aside and get another bowl to do a little bit more mixing in. Now you're gonna add in your wet ingredients, your 5 tablespoons of canola oil, 3 eggs at room temperature already beaten, 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract, and then your 2/3 cup of sour cream, except that I am subbing out the yogurt. By the way, the yogurt turned out so nicely, I'll probably never use sour cream in this recipe and only ever use yogurt. All right, so now you just want to go ahead and mix all of those wet ingredients really, really well. And then you're going to make a well inside of your dry ingredient mixture and then pour the wet ingredients into that and then mix all of that. All right, once you've gotten that good and mixed together, you can go ahead and start putting that into your muffin tins. You want to fill your muffin tins up pretty much to the top. They're going to get a little bit bigger, but nothing too crazy. But yeah, definitely want to make sure that they are pretty full. Give your pan a little shake so that the ingredients are in there nice and evenly, and then grab your oats and just sprinkle a little bit on top of each one. I don't know, it doesn't really taste any different, but it just makes it look a little bit healthier, I guess. A little fancier, I don't know. It was a nice touch.
All right, I've got my pan all ready to go. I'm gonna go ahead and put it in my oven, which I have already preheated to 325, and I'm gonna leave them in there for about 22 minutes. I will be doing the toothpick test on those later. As long as the toothpick comes out clean, I'm good to go. All right, let's let those bake.
Okay, so here I am. I just grabbed a toothpick and I just poked it into one of them, and there was a little bit of dough still on there, so I tossed the toothpick and decided to just leave them in for another minute or two, and then I tried again, and this time it came out clean. So now I know my muffins are finished baking and ready to go. So I went ahead and put them on a cooling rack, and I let them sit there for about 5 minutes before I started pulling them out onto the cooling rack. Definitely recommend this. It cools kind of, I mean, still they're very hot, but it cools everything off just a little bit and allows the muffins to get nice and firm so that you're not going to break them when you remove them from the pan. Look how amazing that is. Oh my gosh, it's like a carrot cake met breakfast.
Oh my gosh, these are so delicious. I can tell this is gonna be a staple in our house for a while now. I'm pretty stoked. Now I'm just gonna let these cool off, and then I'll be able to put them in the freezer so that they can be nice and fresh and ready to go next week for Rosh Hashanah. All right, so the next thing that we're gonna be baking is round challah. It's a tradition for Rosh Hashanah to have round challah instead of, you know, whatever other shaped challah you would have the rest of the year, kind of more oblong or in a rectangle. So my challah dough being gluten-free, I can't shape it and braid it and fold it or anything like that to get it into a round shape. So my options are basically to use some sort of a round pan or to use a silicone mold. I'm opting to use the silicone mold. I got this great mold from Amazon. It's from the brand Kosher Cook. And this is how I make my rolls during the rest of the year. But what I'm doing for Rosh Hashanah is filling it up all the way.
So I've got a little helper here with my bread baking today. My daughter is helping me proof the yeast, and then she'll be helping me with some other stuff as we bake bread together. It's one of our favorite things to do. My daughter absolutely loves to bake. Now, I've already done a whole video on my gluten-free challah. So I am not going to go through all the steps and ingredients and everything on how to make this bread. I am, however, going to link up in the corner as well as down in the description box below where my video is so that you can pop over there and watch my video on exactly how to make gluten-free challah that is hamotzi and delicious. So definitely head on over there and check out that video. It's a super fun video, even if you're not planning on baking the bread, but I highly recommend the bread, whether you keep gluten-free or not, because it's just a really delicious, hearty bread. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to fill these molds up pretty high. Normally when I just make the rolls, I'm filling them up like less than halfway full. And here I'm filling them up almost all the way to the top. And then they will rise, as you can see, as I'm putting them in the oven. They have risen to be about the height of the mold, and they'll get just a little bit bigger as well as they bake. Okay, here you can see they have gotten just a little bit bigger there in the oven, and they just flip right out of that mold so easily.
All right, so there you go. Delicious round challah ready for Rosh Hashanah. So it's kind of just like a giant roll. Gosh, they smell delicious. But that's what I've got, and we'll just probably have to use 2 or 3 for every meal instead of the normal 1 large loaf that we would normally use for ourselves for a meal. But no big deal. So I'm just gonna keep refilling that silicone mold until I could probably make 12 loaves total, which will be more than enough to get us through the 2-day Yom Tov holiday. Okay, that's all the baking I'm gonna do for today, but hang tight because I will be back in just a few seconds with more baking. Okay, I'm back. New day for me, same video for you, and today we're gonna be working on baking a gluten-free apple cake. All right, I'm gonna flip you guys around, show you what ingredients you're gonna need.
Okay, so in this recipe, it calls for butter, but I'm using Earth Balance so that this cake will be dairy-free. You're also going to need some sugar, some nutmeg, eggs, apples, lemon juice, cinnamon, baking powder, salt, 1-to-1 gluten-free flour, and vanilla extract.
Okay, so for me, it's just not Rosh Hashanah without an apple cake. So I am so excited to have found this recipe. This recipe and also the Morning Glory muffins and the next recipe that I'm gonna do all came from Gluten Free on a Shoestring, and I will put all of those recipes, links to those recipes down in the description box, so be sure to check that out if you're interested in making any of these delicious baked goods. Okay, let's start cooking.
Okay, so I grabbed some wax paper so that I could prep my pan. I find that it is so much easier when cooking anything in a cake pan like this to put wax paper on the bottom, because then the cake comes right out very easily. So I just traced the pan on the wax paper with a knife and then was able to kind of tear/cut the circle out. It really does not have to be super perfect. It just has to fit in the bottom of your pan. And now I'm going to spray the pan with canola oil on the bottom and the sides, and then I can put my wax paper there on the bottom.
Okay, now that I've got my pan all prepped and ready to go, I'm gonna go ahead and preheat my oven here to 325 degrees. And let's go add some ingredients.
So the first thing you want to do is chop up your apples, top with 1 teaspoon of cinnamon and the lemon juice, and toss all of that together. Yes, it is much easier in a bowl. Don't be like me, don't use a plate. Once you've gotten that all mixed up, go ahead and set it aside, grab a bowl, and add in 1 cup plus 2 teaspoons of baking flour, ½ teaspoon of salt, your 1/8 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, and some more cinnamon, and then mix all of that together. Now in a separate bowl, add 10 tablespoons of butter, melted and cooled, 1 cup of sugar, and 2 eggs at room temperature already beaten. Mix that together and then add 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. Now mix it all together. Now take your dry ingredients and add about half of that to your wet ingredients. Mix this all up together, and then once that's pretty well mixed, add the other half of your dry ingredients to this and then mix well. Your batter should be fairly thick at this point. Okay, grab another bowl and grab your apples. Pour all the apples into that bowl, or if you mix them in a bowl, just leave them there. And then add about 2/3 of your batter to the apples. Then go ahead and mix this up so that the apples are all fully coated in the cake batter. Now go ahead and grab your cake pan, which you have already prepared, and pour the remaining 1/3-ish cake batter into the bottom of that pan. Go ahead and spread it out so that it's nice and even and covers the bottom of the pan. And then pour your apple batter mixture on top. And then using a wet spatula or spoon, just kind of even that out as well, sort of pat it down so that it's not too crazy looking. Now go ahead and cover that firmly with foil and put that in the oven for 20 minutes. You're supposed to preheat the oven to 325. I found personally that this worked better for me at 350, so just as a heads up. Once you hit 20 minutes, go ahead and take off the foil and then put your cake back in the oven for another 20 minutes. After this 20 minutes is up, your cake is potentially ready to come out. Do the toothpick test. Mine was definitely not ready to come out. Again, this worked a lot better for me when I was doing it at 350 degrees instead of 325. But everybody's oven is different. So for this time, because I was at 325, I ended up leaving it in for about 10 more minutes. And at that point, the toothpick did come out clean and I was ready to go. Just like our muffins, you're going to want to leave this sitting out on a cooling rack for about 5 to 10 minutes at least before you pull it out of the pan to finish cooling on the cooling rack by itself. So in order to get this out, I took a non-sharp knife and I went around the edges to make sure that the cake wasn't sticking to the pan around any of the edges. Because I've already prepped the bottom of the pan with the wax paper, I wasn't worried about that at all. Quick flip. And now you've got an upside down apple cake. So now I just need to pull off my wax paper and then throw that into the garbage, and then I will be good to go to flip the cake over. To do that, I'm using a second cooling rack, which I'm just placing on top, and then I can flip the whole thing over and remove that now top rack. Look at that apple cake. Oh my gosh, how delicious. First of all, it smelled amazing and it looks amazing, and I was so sad that I couldn't try it because I didn't want to cut it up yet.
So there you have it, apple cake. That's gonna make an amazing dessert at one of our lunches. I'll actually probably be making a second one because I just really love apple cake for Rosh Hashanah dessert. To me, that is Rosh Hashanah, it's the apple dessert. Okay, so the next thing that we are going to be baking, and this is the very last one, is I wanted to make one more sweet breakfast treat. I just love to bake goods for breakfast, it's my absolute favorite. I'm going to make an apple coffee cake. I'm not even totally sure what coffee cake is, but apple coffee cake sounds really delicious, so I'm gonna go for it. All right, let me show you what ingredients we're gonna be needing for this one.
Okay, you're gonna need some apples. You're gonna need some soy milk or almond milk, something like that. The recipe calls for actual milk. I'm keeping it dairy-free. Same with the butter. I'm using the earth balance. You're also gonna need some Bisquick, some cinnamon, an egg, salt, and light brown sugar. And diving right in, you're going to want to prepare your pan the same way that you just did in the previous recipe with the canola oil and the wax paper. Go ahead and set that aside. Now grab yourself a small bowl. We're going to make the crumble topping. You're going to want to put in half a cup of light brown sugar, 1 cup of gluten-free Bisquick mix, half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 1/8 a teaspoon of kosher salt, and 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter, which you have melted and then cooled. Mix all of this together really well and then place it in your refrigerator for the time being. Okay, now grab yourself another bowl and let's make our cake batter. Add 2 cups of gluten-free Bisquick mix and 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar. Now go ahead and mix this all together and then add in 1 cup of milk at room temperature, 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter, which you have melted and cooled, and 1 egg, which you have already beaten. Mix all of that together. Okay, go ahead and set that over to the side and grab your pan, which you have already prepared. Now pour all of your batter into that pan. You're going to kind of have to scrape the sides with a spatula most likely. Now take your spatula and flatten it all out onto the bottom of the pan. Go ahead and try to make it as even and flat as is reasonable. Now go ahead and grab your apples, which you have already sliced. I sliced mine as thin as I could, which I don't know, not super thin, but as thin as I could. And now arrange your apples into a single layer onto the top of your cake pan. It doesn't have to be all perfect and pretty, it just has to be that single layer. I just had to do it in a perfect circle because, you know, that's me. But keep in mind that no one's actually going to see this unless, of course, you're making a video and putting it out on YouTube, because you will be covering all of this with a crumble topping. Okay, if you have leftover apple slices, feed them to your children or eat them yourself. And then sprinkle your beautiful apple topping there with some cinnamon, and then go ahead and grab your crumble topping from your refrigerator and sprinkle all of your crumble topping as evenly as possible onto the top of your apple cake. See, nobody can see your apples. It does not need to be perfect. All right, go ahead and go over to your oven, which you should have preheated to 375 degrees, and put your cake inside. Naturally, I forgot to film this, so you're only seeing me take my cake out 25 minutes later. Now, go ahead and place this down on your cooling rack. Let that cool for a little bit again before you pull it out. I'm doing the same thing by grabbing just a non-sharp knife, going around the edges just to make sure that nothing is really attached there. And then to protect my beautiful apple crumble topping from falling off, I'm using a plate to flip it over. And then I will pull off my wax paper there from the bottom, toss that into the trash can. Look at that cake, you guys. That's kind of awesome. Toss my cooling rack onto the top, flip it over so that that becomes the bottom, and now I can remove my plate and allow my cake to cool completely. Oh my gosh, you guys, this one may be our favorite of the day. It basically took all of my willpower to not slice it open and start eating it right there. I'm gonna need to make another.
All right, that coffee cake looks amazing. I cannot wait to dive in. But I'm gonna have to wait because it's for Rosh Hashanah, which is later on this week. Okay, so that is everything that I am baking today. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Remember, I'm going to be linking to the recipes that I use down below in the description, but so be sure to check that out so you can make these at your house. And be sure to go over and check out Sonya's prep so that you can watch her video that she did that goes along with this one. Her video and channel are linked in the description below as well. Thank you all so much for watching. I so enjoyed baking with you all. Please let me know which recipe you would like most to try in the comments, and let's get this conversation going. Be sure to hit that like button, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Helps me know what kind of videos you guys like the most. And be sure to hit subscribe if you haven't already so that you don't miss any of my future videos. Thank you all so much for tuning in today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in my next upload.